Well, there's more of you here than I expected. Should have worked longer on the sermon this weekend. And thank you so much for lighting our Advent candle. That was so lovely to have your whole family come up and do that. And the Rices, you're back from burying your mother, and so God bless you in that work, and I'm glad that you're back from that. And Becca, you're going to Cambodia tomorrow. We had a prayer request for your Habitat for Humanity. They're going to build a house in Cambodia, so we'll pray for you, and God bless you. And building, that's actually an important theme for Advent, is the building of, rather than the tearing down and the violence, the building. If you were here last week, Shane Reese, former enforcer for a motorcycle gang, gave his testimony. And someone during the week took that message of redemption, that Christ had redeemed him, and they went and they reached out to someone in their family that they were separated from, and they were able to reconcile. And it doesn't heal the pain. There's a real hurt that caused them to be separated. But it began the process of reconciliation and healing. If you want to see that, Nick's actually posted it on the YouTube, and you can watch Shane's testimony. It's very powerful. A person, a man of violence, who says, this is who I am, but now Christ has made me something different. And that seed and that fruit becomes the fruit of faith, and that becomes also the focus of Advent, because Advent now is this special time of 4 weeks where we need to reassess, recalibrate, and we need to ask ourselves, for what are we living and for whom are we living? These are important questions. But before we get to those questions, a few commercials about our life together here at the church. One is, we're still signing people up for our all-parish Christmas progressive dinner, December 20th. And enough of you have signed up that we don't just need people to sign up to go, we actually need some people to host some of our appetizer houses. It's super easy. She gives you the food. You know, you're going to, it's not like you don't have to come up with something, but if you want to be a host, we have enough people who have signed up that we need a couple more host houses, and it's going to be a really fun night, and so we hope you can do that. Also, Dean Winter is starting a new class this Wednesday for the theme of Advent, and they're going to be looking at lesser-known parts of this season, because we talk about the birth of Jesus, He's going to talk about the genealogies of Jesus, which should not put you off to going to the class. It's actually a very interesting topic if someone knows how to teach it. And actually, he'll be using Tim Keller, and I think that will be effective. Wednesday at 4:30, that new class is starting. Also, Wednesday evening, one reason they're doing it at 4:30, carols at the bar. So Triple Crown, Christmas caroling. We're going to be there, and I hope you're there too, if you want to sing, or if you just want to drink, or if you want to drink and sing. It's still one of my favorite moments that the owner of the bar invited us to do that, and then they go, why are you singing outside? We want the people in the bar to sing. And it's like you looked in the bar at the regulars, and you're like, I don't think they want to be singing right now, And then they go, no, make them sing, make them sing. And so that has become the theme song of this event, is Little Drummer Boy, because all the Lutherans are like, come, they told me, and then all the people at the bar are like, pa-ra-pa-pum-pum. It's like a moment out of I love it. It's like, oh, what a almost kingdom of God. We're there, we're getting there. Now, here's actually the biggest announcement, which was over the Thanksgiving holiday. Actually, it opens tomorrow officially, so it hasn't happened yet. They found a parsonage property. And it's going to be, yeah, that's good. You can pray for that, or clap for that, pray for that. At Pacific Ranch, right by City Hall, Maine and Lake, not Maine, Yorktown and Lake, where the Hendricksons live. And this is an unusual property. One of the reasons it happened over the Thanksgiving holiday is this thing popped up. And, our budget was $1.3 million. And because it's a probate sale and there's some things, it's a nice property, but the stuff around it was a little unusual, $999,999. So that's good. And now what that means is next Sunday we need to have a meeting to confirm that the congregation supports this. So you'll get an email with a list of the property and pictures and that kind of thing. And we need to do this in the contingency period so that we can give the affirmation, and then John Valenti, it's difficult working with the National Church, who's our funder, and there's a lot of moving pieces, and the scheduling of this has been complicated, but we're going to land the plane. Actually, they're going to land the plane because they know how to fly. I only know how to speak for a living. They know how to fly. I think that was, we had a guy come last week after church, and I won't call him a frequent flyer because he doesn't come, but he's a homeless guy. He lives in his car. And he said, back in January, the church gave me a place to stay. We call it a refresher. Like, there's some people, we can't fix their problems. The city has to fix them. The social workers, the case managers, the housing navigators, they're working on all that. But he goes, it was raining, and I'm living in my car. I just need to be refreshed for a couple of days, feel human again, and take a shower, cook, have a Thanksgiving meal. And so we put him in a hotel. Actually, Susan and I go, Susan, he asked for 3 nights, so maybe do Monday through Wednesday. She goes, you want him to get kicked out on Thanksgiving? I go, oh, Monday through Friday, yeah. Yeah, it's good that Susan's here to kind of keep track of things. But it's just a reminder of how important it is that we create space for people so that they can rediscover their human vocation, the calling of God to be human. This is the most exciting part about who we are, is our ability to express ourselves and creatively respond to the world that God's put us in. So like last Sunday, a group of high school students and some of their families, we went to downtown LA and we did a walking tour, Michelle and I, and some of their families. And one of the questions we were asking the youth was, look at the architecture of these buildings we're visiting and ask yourself if they were built to make people feel more alive, less alive, more beautiful, less beautiful, like you're just a cog in a machine who's producing profit for someone else, or you have a place here, this is your place, and your contribution is valued. The way we create spaces architecturally, artistically, ecclesially, communicates what we believe about the world. Now, of course, we can say, well, there are limitations of budget. I get it. That's true. All of that's true, but we still communicate. And then, of course, we're right down the street from Skid Row, our big open-air asylum that we've created in Los Angeles. And that was important to say to them, too, that we have agreed as a society that it's okay to leave all these people outside, because essentially the way we're operating is there are people who are just going to be debris, human debris, to be disposed of, essentially. Keep them going, give them medicine, tend their wounds, that kind of thing. But they're essentially going to be disposed of because they're the wrong people for whatever reason. And so we have to account for that too. And we did that as we went to the cathedral to talk about spaces where God is calling us to the fullness of our human vocation. So this is part of this season of Advent, is for us to wake up and to really ask ourselves and assess and recalibrate to what are we dedicating our time, and for whom are we living? And it's not an obvious question to be answered. This is why when they're talking to Jesus about it, Jesus goes, okay, everybody, here's the thing. Stop fixating on the time. And they're like, when's it going to be? He's like, stop, nobody knows. Literally, I don't even know. The Father hasn't told me, He knows, but okay, so the Father knows, but you don't know, why don't you know it? No, don't worry about the time. Stop asking about the time. And it's so funny, Christians are always like, oh, I want to be so obedient. Whatever He tells me to do, I want to do. He said, don't think about the time. And then people are like, when's it going to be? It's one of the weird areas that we're kind of like fudging. Well, He didn't really mean that. I know He said feed the hungry, but He also said, don't care about the time, but I don't think He meant that. Even Isaac Newton, the guy that invented calculus, he tried to figure it out. And if Isaac Newton, who invented calculus, can't figure it out, I doubt we're going to figure it out either. But it becomes an opportunity to distract ourselves from the fundamental question of reorienting our life toward a different future. Because if we can distract ourselves even with religious questions that we take seriously among ourselves, but don't really have any bearing on what God's doing for us, then we are able to avoid being challenged with the possibility that we are not building a life for God's future. And this is why Jesus goes, you guys want to talk about time? Let's go back in time to Noah. Now remember in the time of Noah. And they go, well, no, but we've heard about it. He goes, remember in the time of Noah, people were just living their lives. He goes, very much like today. Everyone's living their lives. Some people are so glad Thanksgiving's over. Some people are sad Thanksgiving is over. Some people are still recovering from what they ate or what they drank on Thanksgiving. They're just living their lives. I had someone in the middle of the service in the middle of my sermon, get up and leave. But they told me before the service, we're going to get up in the middle of your sermon and leave because we have to go to brunch before our family leaves for Thanksgiving. Now, I knew that, but no one else knew that. So they thought, what did he say that they just got up in the middle of his sermon and they left? What is the only sign people have that a different future is approaching? That someone like Noah builds a boat. Someone like Noah starts to dedicate his energy towards something different than what everyone else is doing. And I'm not asking you to build a boat in your front yard. What I am asking you to do is to ask yourself, what would my life look like if I started building everything toward God's future? Not just what I imagine getting through the day or trying to achieve something, even if it hurts someone else or there's going to be human debris as part of the cost, the necessary cost of getting ahead. What if I start building toward God's future because the day is coming when there will only be God's future? This isn't a question of which path do you want to take, and there's a lot of paths that are possible. It is there's going to be one thing, and there's going to be an inundation of kingdom, an inundation of resurrection, an inundation of light. And that's actually the Greek word for flood is cataclysm, in case you didn't know that. So I looked that up on the internet before church, and it's cataclysm. This idea, though, of an inundation where everything gets filled. This is why Noah is prepared for a world where everything gets filled with something different than what is. And he starts to orient his life toward that already. And that's why Jesus tells them, keep awake. And they go, yeah, but I want to set an alarm so then I can get ready right before he comes. No, let every moment, every living, breathing moment be a possibility or the possibility of preparation and wakefulness. It's sort of like when the sun starts coming and you wake up and you realize, oh, I can tell I'm going to have to get up soon because there's light. The season of Advent, the reason we light candles isn't because we're trying to keep the candle or oil industry in business. We are trying to add more light. Every week, add more light. And if you think of your work in Advent, add more light. And if you say, what does that look like? I want you to take the special consideration that part of your Advent calling, especially related to this church, is to be a bringer and maker of peace. Peacemakers. Not the place on Adams, that's not going to be an Orthodox church, but peacemakers according to what we hear in Isaiah and the special relationship we have with Hiroshima and the Lutheran church that was built by someone whose wife was killed in the atomic bomb while he was a prisoner of war in Hong Kong. Fascinating guy. That's someone we should read a book about, Pastor Watanabe. There's a little guy who's just, he became very, in the 60s, he popped up on the BBC. See, now I'm off on another track, so we'll see if I get back on this track. But he popped up on the BBC in the 60s because he had helped all these British prisoners of war. And they wondered, they go, whatever happened to that guy? That guy was like, he saved our lives, and he just disappeared. And then after 20 years, someone found him, and they brought him to England, and he was interviewed, and they go, yeah, that's the guy. But he was the one that founded the Lutheran church in Hiroshima, where Pastor Totno is the pastor. So what does Isaiah say about peacemaking? Isaiah imagines a world very much what Jesus is describing, where there's going to be a flood, an inundation. But there's going to be a mountain that gets raised higher than any of whatever happens. It's going to be the highest mountain in the world, the temple of God, and everyone's going to come to that. It's going to be, if you imagine like a giant drain where everything is just, it's like New Orleans, but in a good way. Everything's just going to be coming down into this one area. Everyone will be drawn to God. God will finally be at the center. And this is part of the calling of Advent, is to acknowledge and also repent of or turn away from selfishness. This idea that we are at the center of the universe. This idea that everyone has to revolve around us. The idea that our tastes, our desires, our thoughts, our wants have to be the center rather than God. And Isaiah gives us a world where everyone starts streaming toward God. This is the image. And what we're saying in Advent is you don't have to wait for the inundation. You can start doing it now. Your life of faith, you can start moving toward God now by the power of the Holy Spirit, recognizing who's really at the center, and at the center is the image of the cross. Jesus' cross, verified by the empty tomb, to say this is the heart of reality, which is resurrection. And this is why we need to bring more light into the world, and this is why we need to take on the vocation of peacemaker. Because the people in Isaiah don't go, well, and then we came to Jerusalem and we just sort of sat around for a while. Now what are we supposed to do? He said, no, now they're going to take their swords and turn them into plowshares. They're going to take their spears and turn them into pruning hooks. They're going to take all their weapons of war, and they're now going to be obsolete. And now we're going to use them to cultivate life. Literal cultivation. They're all going to be turned into farm implements, so that rather than killing each other and being people of violence, we are going to be able to be bringers of life. There was someone else at the first service I was talking to before who was part of the Ranger Regiment. If you know the U.S. Army, it's a prestigious regiment. He was involved in the first Gulf War, and we were talking about people that make us upset, because, sometimes it's fun to just talk about who you're mad at, And I go, I so appreciate your response to what I just said. And he goes, well, it's hard. It's hard for me to choose that because my initial thought is just to crack their head. But I'm not going to do that because I'm called to be something different. I was trained with the sword and the spear, but now my response is going to be the cultivation of life. He didn't say that, but the summary of what he said was essentially that. Christ calls me to a different path than what I was shaped. I was shaped by my family to be one thing. I was shaped by my football coach to be one thing. I was shaped by my basic training to be one thing. And then Christ came and told me I was something different. And it doesn't mean I don't have those skills and I'm not that person. It just means now I am called to use my skills for something new. And this newness is the bringing of peace, the sowing the seeds of peace, growing the fruit of peace, reconciliation, and recognizing that what we're waking up to is the reality that Jesus dealt with that same violence on the cross, and his answer was resurrection. I tell you this all the time from the prophet Isaiah, and it's going to be true when we talk about communion today. When God talks about, let vengeance be mine, oh sweet vengeance. How many of us have dreamed of raining down vengeance on the people that have hurt us or been our enemies, oh sweet vengeance? And God goes, no, because all you're going to do with your vengeance is multiply the injury in a different way. And then we end up in these cycles of violence that are multi-generational, where people hate each other for centuries, because it's a multi-generational adding of the trauma and the violence, and it almost becomes you can't walk away from it because it feels like you're betraying a calling if you don't answer with the next ratcheting up of violence. I mean, imagine if Jesus could very well have said, every time you all have this meal, I want you to remember what they did to me, and I want you to go out there and I want you to show them, and I want you to make them pay. This could be a revenge meal every time. But instead, what Jesus says is, I want you to take this, I want you to remember that my body was broken, my blood was spilled, and by this, you're forgiven. And by this, there's new life. So the vengeance of God is those people who are blind will see. Those people who are deaf will hear. Those people who are lame, they will walk. God's vengeance is to make people alive. And so the architecture of the kingdom, the relationships of the kingdom, everything is pushing toward healing, redemption, and life. And when the church's language, its own language, gets reduced to a kind of moralism that doesn't allow people to realize what happened, what we're trying to do is bring people to healing, then we ourselves are contributing to the problem. And God will have to judge us with his vengeance, which is, that's not what we're doing. We're actually here to make you more alive. And it isn't just like an idea. That aliveness will include resurrection. Total life. You will be alive again. So you will die biologically. Your death is an important part of God's story. But God's vengeance on death is you will be made alive. Wake up. This is the truest thing about the world. This is the journey of Advent, our bringing of new light every week and every day as we live out this vocation of peacemaking and being bringers of Christ's light. Now, you know we do the creed at this point, which we're going to do, but you should notice that it's the 1700th anniversary of the Council of Nicaea, which is the writing of the Nicene Creed, a foundational text in all Christian teaching for everybody, even if they don't use it, about who Jesus is related to God. And just right now, like literally, in fact, it just got posted on our Facebook page from Lutheran World Federation. The Pope, representing the Western Church, the Ecumenical Patriarch, representing the Eastern Church, were meeting together, and they offered a blessing together. And they said, even though Christians are separated, we're going to offer this blessing. It's like Simon and Andrew being two brothers who both fished for Christ. We're two brothers blessing you because we want to see healing in the Christian family. And so even Christians right now are trying to find ways to live more closely together as a witness to the gift that Christ has brought. So as we confess our faith, imagine those people that we can grow closer to, that we can heal wounds with, that we can enter into a deeper spirit of fraternity and family. Amen.